All right, hey everyone. So what we're going to talk about in this brief video is Azure's Blob storage and how we work with it, upload it as an introduction. So here, Azure, let's sign in. Maybe for the sake of this exercise, I'm probably going to use my own personal account. Okay. So once we're inside of here, we will type in storage. So storage accounts is where we are going to want to go. Okay, so right now by default, don't have any storage account set up to anything. So we'll hit here, create storage account. So let's zoom in here, see what we got. So you choose your subscription group, storage account name. Let's call this Haunts Storage to delete. So they don't like any special characters here. Haunts test account storage. Okay, let's go with that. Region, so again, if we were to be deploying actual real healthcare data here, make sure it's in the US. We'll just select US East, primary service, and then for us here, it's going to be Blob storage. So that's going to be the primary service that we'll be working with, and then primary workload. So we have a couple options here: big data, backup, archive, cloud native, high performance computing, machine learning. We'll just choose other to proceed with non-specific workload units. So it's just as generic as we can potentially make it. So remember that Azure Files is not just like, say, uploading files, it's the Azure file system. So we want Azure Blob storage. This is our sort of most general genetic type of storage mechanism. Performance standard is fine. Redundancy, you can even just sort of turn this off. Lowest cost, let's see, local, zone redundant, geo. So again, a whole bunch of additional options that might be relevant for us if we were to be having production data within here, but not necessarily, or not necessary for what we're doing here. So we'll just say, we'll just select this one, recommended for non-critical scenarios. And that will probably also translate to the cheapest. All right, so let's say next, what other types of options do we have here? Of course, this recording thing is in the wrong spot. All right, so configure security, require secure transfer for REST API options. Yes, let's have that selected. Allow anonymous access on individual containers. So that's unselected, so that means no anonymous access. That's good, we'll leave that. Enable storage account key access, sure. So that means we could create specific separate keys to access individual containers potentially within the service. We'll leave this off. Minimum TLS version 2, sure. 1.2, that's the most recent one. Permitted scope for copy operations, we'll just again leave this the same. Enable hierarchy namespaces. Let's again just keep it basic here. Access protocols, enable SFTP, can only be enabled for hierarchical. All right, so we'll just leave that disabled. Blob storage, and then here we have access to your hot or cool. So we'll just leave it for hot for right now. So everyday storage, enable large file shares up to 100 terabytes. Wow, quite a lot. Okay, great. So that's security. Let's now say next and look at networking, enable public access from all networking. Sure. Again, just because it's public access doesn't mean that you can connect to it, right? It just means that it's available on the World Wide Web versus having to VPN in or connect to a private network. So again, if this was real healthcare data, we would probably want to disable public access and use private access. And then from here, we would then add in the individual VPNs or the IPs that have the capability to connect to the service. But it's a little bit unnecessary for what we have here today. And here it looks like this is another sort of way where we could also do this sort of white labeling of IP addresses, which means that we're kind of green lighting access only from specific IP addresses. So, you know, like this is my IP address, so I would then be able to access it from my own machine. But again, no, not necessary for right now. We'll leave all this other stuff the same. So that was our networking, data protection. So, we talked a little bit about this soft delete versus hard delete. Soft delete means it gets sort of deleted from our view, but it's still being saved somewhere temporarily, just in case we decide that we actually don't want to delete it. So it looks like it has a default to 7 days. Cool. Next, what else? Encryption. We'll just leave this as standard. And then we got our beautiful tags. Yeah, I'm just going to leave that blank. Review and create. It's validating. Great. And then let's hit create. And this should be quite quick. So I'll just pause and restart this once it finishes. Okay, so it has finished. Deployment successful. So if we go back here now, we'd say storage. Now when we go to storage accounts, here's our storage land. Okay, so a lot of different things here, like we see with all of the Azure different services in this overview view, which could be a little bit overwhelming. But the main part that we just want to quickly navigate to, left-hand side, data storage. So this is our different data services. And specifically what we care about here is containers. So that's going to be our sort of blob storage. So right now it's completely empty. There's nothing really in here. What we could do then is create a new container. Let's call this maybe like just test data. Again, we'll just kind of leave the defaults here, and then we will go down here. If I could hit the create button, create. So here's our little container now where, say, we could like upload, you know, documents, right? So just like what we saw previously in GCP. Upload, cool. There's our document. And then what we can do, right, is we could right click this, and it's a little bit different here with these individual files. Here we could say generate SAS, and then what that is going to do for us is we can then generate this shared access signature, which will generate for us a specific token, right? And this is the kind of neat part here I really like with what Microsoft has done. It's like a short access token, which you can very easily enable and restrict how long someone or a group of people can potentially access this file that we've now created, start date, end date, and you could even sort of white label it to specific IP addresses for where they're trying to connect to it. So we'll just kind of leave these defaults here and I'll just kind of show you. So when we hit generate SAS token, this is now a sort of download URL if we then want to kind of, you know, share this. And just to kind of show you, let's see what this does. Let's try and do it in an incognito window. So we paste this in. Oops. Did I not copy the full thing? Oh, that was just the token. Let's do the whole URL. So let's go here, paste it in, and we should see, right? So here's the beginning of our URL, test account storage.blob.core windows. And then here's our file. And then the rest of this that follows is kind of just URL parameters or arguments saying, hey, we're going to pass over this secret token that should be working on this day and time via an HTTPS endpoint. And everything here that follows is our kind of, secret key. So let's hit this and cool, right? Then it's saying, hey, we could now directly download this file called blood pressure. And there it is. So that is our sort of, quick way of uploading stuff, which is quite straightforward, I think, right? So in the next little segment, we'll then talk about, all right, now how can we use one of the Azure packages, one of the Azure SDKs for Python to do what we just did using some code.